Polish and Flourish series by the Polish Cultural Institute in New York. Today the episode will be a little bit different because my guest, Kent Washington, is neither Polish nor he has Polish roots, but he has an extraordinary story, an extraordinary link with Poland, as he was the first Black American, and I must say even American, professional basketball player in the communist Poland between 1979 and 1983. It's so nice to have you here with us, Kent. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Well, thank you very much for having me. This is a great opportunity for me.
Thank you. And I also want to add that you wrote a memoir in which you wrote about your experience of being a professional basketball player back in communist Poland. And it's a memoir from 2021, and the title is Kentomania, a Black Basketball Virtuoso in Communist Poland.
That is correct. And it's right there.
Yes. Great, thank you. First things first. So I wanted to ask you, how did you become interested in basketball, and when did you decide to become a professional basketball player?
Yeah, okay. So about the age of 12 or 13, I began to get this unquenchable thirst to practice basketball. It was something that was just inside of me. I just like to practice basketball alone, and I actually couldn't get enough of it. I liked the challenge of actually getting better. And I used to practice and watch my brother, who's 6 years older, and his friends play basketball. And I just wanted to be like them. So I kept practicing, and I began to set goals to get to different school teams. I wanted to play on my junior high school team. And once I made that, I would start practicing even harder all summer to make the next team, the JV high school team. And after that, I would continue even working harder to make the varsity team. And I never realized that I would play beyond high school. I didn't have any dreams of playing further. I just good enough to play pro, so I never even about it. But I kept practicing, and I got an offer to play college basketball, which I didn't think I would ever play. And from there, that led me kind of accidentally into to Poland.
I know, and that was my my second question is, like, how did it happen that you started to play behind the Iron Curtain, in communist Poland? Because that is very interesting.
Yes, so at Southampton College, my junior year, our team went on a tour of Warsaw and Lublin. And while there, we were playing different teams. And the first game in Warsaw, I have this very imaginable playing style, imaginative. I handled the ball kind of differently and passed differently than what the Polish fan had seen. And after the first game, all of these people came down out of the bleachers, and I was signing autographs, and it was, I never signed any autographs before. And each game, there became more people. And we had a translator with us named Ava. And she began to, a lot of journalists there. So she began to translate, and she began to read the articles at the games. And I began to realize that I was kind of more than just a basketball player there. I became kind of like a little celebrity. And when we went to Lublin, and the anticipation of me going there drew many crowds. And again, I was very popular, and I kind of didn't realize everyone wants to be popular until you actually are. And then you kind of realize that there's a lot of with signing and just kind of being people all around you. And the coach from Start Lublin, trainer Zdzisław Niedziela, he talked to me through my the translator, and he asked me if I wanted to stay and play basketball there. And I told him I actually couldn't. I had to go back and finish college. But my Southampton College tour was the first time I ever saw Poland, and I loved it.
That's so nice to hear. The first thing I want to ask you as well about the experience is what were the challenges that you faced in this new reality? Because you came from the United States, and now and then you suddenly were in a completely different space, behind the Iron Curtain, with the fact that you're American, and so what were like the problems or the issues that you had at the beginning?
Yeah, so when I signed my contract January 4th, 1979, I knew from being there with my college that the basketball part would be fine. The playing style that I had. The cultural part, I wasn't quite prepared for that. Things like refrigeration, electricity, the plumbing were of a different standard than what I was used to in the USA. And I had to adapt very quickly. Things like toilet paper. You always didn't have it. There were times when there were ripped up newspapers there for you instead of the toilet paper. And, you have to be able to adapt to certain things. My first meal was beef tartare, and I never saw beef tartare before, and I really didn't want to have raw hamburger meat. So I asked kindly if they could cook it into a hamburger, and they just laughed at me like, silly American, he doesn't know what he's doing. But of course, the language. My first half season, I had a translator with me. The language, when you don't know a language, you're very alone because there's nothing to really do. You can't talk to anyone. The television shows are all like voiceover or, so. But my favorite show was Struka Maya and Bolek Ilolik. Struka Maya, I love that show. So I watched television, but what I did was I turned the radio on and I left it on all the time so I could subconsciously hear Polish. And I think that helped me learn the language. And then when you're playing basketball with your the teammates and you're traveling all over the country by by bus, hotels. You start to learn and hear it so much. I started to actually learn it. But that was the biggest challenge. The public transportation was also a little bit different. Buying the tickets from the and then having them stamped on the bus, and their buses got really crowded. I noticed that sometimes people are hanging off outside. I mean, all kind of things that I've never seen. But so there were these challenges like that, but nothing too difficult that would make me want to go home. I think, if I may say, the biggest challenge came during Stan. I don't know if that's a separate question, but I can tell you about that part if you want to.
Yes, yes. I also wanted to ask about it because you were at the time when the martial law was introduced in 1981. So again, it was one of the toughest times in Polish history, and for sure you must have experienced it. So if you could elaborate a little bit on that time, how it was for you, and where were you at that time in Poland?
Absolutely. So I had moved from Lublin to Sosnowiec, and I was playing with a team called Zangwembe. And the contract I had there, I got a nice apartment, and which is very difficult to get during that time in Poland. I mean, these basketball clubs had a lot of power. And my girlfriend came with me, Bojena, and we lived there. And we started to read. At this time, I could speak Polish like fluently. I had been there about 3 years now, so I spoke the language. I was Polish by then. I mean, I was Polish. And we began to read about the boycotts in Gdańsk, the shipyards. And there was some rumblings in our club, teammates. We started to hear about strikes kind of trickling down throughout Poland. And then the Katowice coal miners, they struck. And when town over from them. So we were right in the middle of this solidarity movement, and it was huge. So my neighbors spoke to Bojena and I, and they told us to be very careful who we speak to and what we actually say, because the ears and eyes of state agents were everywhere. So 1981, December 13th, General Jaruzelski proclaimed martial law, which meant that the Polish soldiers pretty much took over Poland. I guess what the general was trying to do was to frustrate the citizens and hope that they would turn on the solidarity movement and it would stop that way. But that didn't even work. The movement was too big now, too big. So we quickly noticed that all items were removed from the stores. I mean, you couldn't get anything, you know. And I got my rationing card. So did Bojena. I got a coal miner rationing card since our club was sponsored by the coal miners. So actually, coal miners got extra meat. I didn't know that until later. So, you know, we would have to stand in line. We'd have to try to find out where we could get items like, you know, butter, flour, meat. kielbasa. And since I didn't smoke or drink, I would trade those coupons for like meat. And that's kind of how we survived. But I was never threatened. I never feared. One time I was going to the practice, and some soldiers called out to me, Ken, gosh, Ken Washington, running over to me with pencil and paper and wanted my autograph. So these were soldiers in the street that were coming to me to get my autograph. I didn't feel anything at all.
Yeah, so these were really tough times, and there are many stories about this period in Polish families, in my family as well. Lots of different, strange, sometimes funny, but sometimes quite scary stories as well.
Yeah, I've heard some too. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I was interested how it went for you, because you were in this, exactly in the time period, and then in 1983 it all finished. I also wanted to ask you, like, what surprised you the most in Poland at that time, or maybe there was some trait in the people that surprised you, or some cultural thing, or some maybe food thing, I don't know, anything that was a bit,
surprising different.
I really didn't have any stereotypes going there. So I would say that I wasn't surprised, but I was very happy that the Polish people embraced me. They took care of me. They made sure that I was okay, especially during the martial law time too. But when I was in Lublin as well, I mean, my first days there, when I would walk to get the bus or something like that, at first people were a little curious, a little standoffish, of course, because they'd never seen a black man, and I can understand that. So when I took the bus, little kids would point and stare and people stare, but I understood it. And by the next week, everybody was saying, "Cześć, Ken," and I would say, "Cześć." They got used to seeing me on my street, walking up and down to get home. So they really embraced me, befriended me. The teammates were like brothers to me. The entire neighborhood, they always said hello. I mean, it was just a wonderful time. And it wasn't like I didn't expect it, but I was glad to understand that communism is not an indictment on the people that live there. They're just people. They are considerate, kind, fantastic people. So that was the main thing that I really, that the Polish people embraced me. And I, in turn, didn't act like an American. We do it better. We know best. I totally wanted to assimilate and learn the language, the culture. One thing that was funny, everybody you meet, you get kissed 3 times on an opposite cheeks, so it's like 3 kisses for everyone. So that took a little while to get used to, because I wasn't used to that.
I also know, I've read it in your story, that you had some film appearances, in the Polish cinema. And there is this very famous comedy called Miś. let's say, teddy bear for translation, which is well known in Poland. Very funny one. And you had a really, really short, I think, episode in there where you played like a basketball player. Did you have any other film appearances, or maybe you could tell me more about, appearing in the Mish comedy?
Of course. The president of our club called my translator and me into the office. This is 1979, 80. And he asked me if I wanted to be in a movie. And I'm like, be in a movie? I mean, who would want me in a movie? I'm a basketball player. Turns out that we had a free weekend, and my translator, whose name is actually Wojtek Popiluk, we drove to Warsaw, where we met Stanisław Bareja, who was the director. And he explained what my role would be. And apparently, I would be the lead character's younger self. So Stanisław Tim was the lead, and he would be bragging to his girlfriend about what a great basketball player he was when he was young, because she saw the Harlem Globetrotters on the TV. So out goes Stanisław Tim, in comes me, and I do this dribbling routine in the room. So after we're done, they were very kind too. I leave, and I didn't really think anything of it. Years and years later, I hear that it's one of the top Polish comedies ever. It's super popular. And
yes, it's iconic. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking, what? And now a lot of younger Polish people know me because of the movie. And I think that's kind of cool too. But
yeah.
I know the fragment of the film really, really well. I know exactly when you appear. Yeah. I also wanted to ask you, is there anything Polish that you miss, or maybe do you have like a favorite spot in Poland that you would like to visit, or you maybe visit from time to time?
Well, I've never been back there since then, but I am going back this summer because it's Start Lublin's 70th anniversary. And
that's great.
The president of the club is having my book translated into language, and it's going to be published in Poland, I think in August, September. So we're going back there for that celebration. And I know that when I get to Lublin, and especially Hotel Victoria, where I spent a couple of weeks, I'm going to be quite teary-eyed because I know Lublin doesn't look the same.
No. I mean, Poland is so different. You will not recognize it. Yeah.
And I realized that people may think I'm a little crazy, but I remember communist Poland in such a good way. It's hard to explain, I guess, to Polish people that view communist Poland maybe differently, maybe more negatively, but I didn't. I saw that time there as the most impactful, embracing part of my life. So that is very close to my heart. So seeing Poland transform now is going to be kind of sentimental about like what happened to the Hotel Victoria. It looks different, what happened to the Maui Fiat, what happened to the Duji Fiat, all of those things are gone. and they'll never come back. What happened to like Strukamaya? Where's Borky Lolik? And it's kind of sentimental to me. So I know I'm going to have a hard time re-embracing the new Poland, but life goes on. What I take with me is the memories. That's all I have, and that was why I felt compelled to write my book, because I want how I felt about them and that time there. That to me, it wasn't so dark. It was uplifting for me. And the fact that I could play basketball there and entertain tens and thousands of fans makes it feel worth everything. And so I take those memories with me. My book, I hope people read. I want Americans to read it here too, so that they realize that people in a communist country are really nice, considerate, kind, good folks. And I wanted to get that message across and bridge that gap between our countries and our cultures. I don't know if that sounds corny, but I really mean that.
No, I get what you mean. It's these were very difficult times, and they're viewed in Poland, quite strongly in terms of politics, and what happened basically. But at the same time, lots of people have some fond memories about some of the things. People were helped each other a lot. They were quite close to each other, because times were tough and it was hard to get by. And because of that, people were, close-knit, I would say, so there is something to it. So I think you're right. And the fact that you feel like that, I think it has some merit as well, So it's not just black and white. It's not that easy, to differentiate, basically. Yeah. And just my last question would be about, do you have your favorite Polish basketball player? Do you, watch the Polish basketball, or maybe you watch some Polish basketball player playing here in the US?
I don't watch as much basketball as people would think. My favorite Polish basketball players were all of the guys I played against and with then. I was fortunate enough to be invited by Jurek Świątek, the Polish national team coach, to Zakopanek for the national team camp for about a week. And that's when I could become friends with guys who I just played against. And I developed friendships and admired guys who I was playing against. And we became really great friends. And those are the guys who I admire, because when you play with and against players like that on that level, you don't realize the friendship you can build outside of the sport. So that week there helped them to actually see me in a different light, because we would play ping pong, pool, eat meals, had time to talk. And again, I could speak Polish a little bit then. So we had time to learn about each other. And one funny thing was, there was my teammates in Start Lublin. they would ask me constantly, why do you come back here? You're American. Why do you keep coming back here? This is Poland. Like, they could not understand why I kept coming back each year. Like, they would never stay, and I told them, I have this blind passion since I was 12 of practicing and playing basketball. And this is the only country that kind of welcomed me. So I love it here. I can play basketball here. And they just couldn't understand why I kept coming back. But I just loved it there.
Yes, at that time, United States were like promised land that has everything in the imagination of people, at that time. Yeah. So Kent, thank you very much. It was an amazing conversation. It was so interesting to listen to your story. And once again, if you're more interested, just read the memoirs. There's for sure more stories and more anecdotes. And I just wish you a beautiful, sentimental journey to Lublin and to Poland. And I'm sure it would be interesting to talk to you after your journey, because I think it may also change a lot in the way you view Poland as well. So that would be very interesting,
Okay.
Yes.
I'll reach out to you again.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so thank you very much. Dziękuję.
And wishing you
all the best.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Dziękuję.
Do widzenia.
Do widzenia.